We usually don't have our field.
Wednesday night will be good.
Well, somebody Malcolm Randall texted me, asked me if we have a here tonight. I said, we usually don't show up. If they do, we don't know whoever's going to show up from home. So we can't really, you know what I mean? If it's somebody who's even semi could be us here. What? No, somebody who's even semi could be us here. It's one thing. You know what I mean?
You mean the big Chumash? Yeah. I know. The big Chumash is them. Yeah, here's good.
Okay, let's look at the end of the parsha of in Vayakel. Lamed Hey, Kapitel Lamed Hey, Pasuk Chavav. Yeah.
How do you know how to do it?
Unbelievable.
You want, you do know where it is.
Okay.
What is the loss of Chochmah Sleb? Chochmah not Lev is Regesh.
Right. But they say something. Bina Liba, Walev Navin. Okay, let's read a few psukim. It says Sikha that's negated to Pasha of Yaakov Pekud and also Pasha Yikra about building the base of Mikdash and also about the Karbonis. And Hayos building the base of Mikdash is a sugya that's relevant to us. Building of Mikdash Mayat is the chelik of building the base of Mikdash. So well, and Mitzvah Shem. Otherwise, the rest of this week we'll dedicate for Yom Pesach. Okay, Pashas Vayakel Sheni. Look at Sheni. Vayakel Pasuk Chof Aleph. To read quickly, Pasuk Chof Aleph through Chavav. Vayavoy kol isha shenasoy liber. Chol shenad v'ruchi oisei vias trumas Hashem v'lachas almaid v'chol abedos alavig da'akodesh. People had a lot of excitement in the heart. They had nedivus ruach, and they brought the trumas. Vayaviu anoshim al anoshim kol nediv lei v'viu choch v'nezem v'tabaz v'chumas kol klizov v'chol isha shenehinim v'nufazov l'Hashem. V'chol isha shenimtzit et chelas v'agomim v'slashoni v'sheish v'yizim v'eris eilim v'adamim. Whatever they had jewelry, they had kli zohov, they had pieces of zohov, they had chelas, they had agomon. Chelas is the blue stuff, which is expensive. True blue in the olden days were really expensive. That was made from a special dye from chilazon. It was a very, very expensive type of dye. Agomon is this they had for the base of Mikdash. Agomon is purple, and then there's telas shani, which is red. Sheish. Izim is made from the goats. Is a special type of leather, the skin that they brought on the top. Paul made him through this kesef and the choshev is trumas Hashem. This is going through a list of basically the things they needed. That's all the merchandise that were brought to the Oisei HaMalacha. They weaved it with their hands, the tchelas, the agomon, telashoni, and the sheish. They spindled, they made string out rope from the hair of the izim. Let's stop here. Then there's okay. Rashi says, let's look at a small little Rashi. Tovas Izim. Rashi says, he also umnus yisera. Not chochma yisera like the pasuk says. Umnus yisera. Umnus yisera. Shall gabi izim tovan oise. With the izim, they are alive and they're saying, meh. And while the izim are running in, the one woman have to run after the goats and they have to spindle they make from the tzemer. They have to make chutim while it's alive.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
How were they able to do it?
They
while
probably had a lot of exercise. They were able to run around that. They did not have to worry about exercise.
Well, why can't be that you took the sheep, you tied it, and then you stay.
Maybe they did that. Each woman had to figure out how they're going to do it.
I don't see what's enough kamina if you do it while he's alive or you take it off.
That's the shayla. What's enough kamina? You're making yourself crazy, and you're making the goats crazy. And the Medrash said, Agadol says that it was a hard work. The izim, the goats, they're not so still. The goats, the kvosim, the dafkets mashma, that those things they're quiet, so they didn't bother them.
Izim is like to jump.
The izim like to jump, so the kvosim it's mashma that they didn't bother them because they in order to make there was three sets of curtains that went on top of the mishkan. There was the fancy, which was made from the sheep. The wool of the sheep was made into threads, and they were later dyed.
It's nice.
And purple and blue and red and gold, and there was weaved into nice pictures, which was the bottom curtain. Then there was the middle curtain, which was the cheap one, which was made from the noitza shel izim, from the hair, from the what grows on the goats. And then on the top, there was the fancy schmancy, the lancy pieces of leather, oidis tchoshen, that was on the top. So when you look inside the Mishkan, you look up, you saw these beautiful, beautiful tapestry made of string that's blue and purple and red and gold and beautiful designs. If you looked outside from a helicopter or from a drone, from the top, you could see these beautiful oidis tchoshim, which Rashi said, according to an opinion, only existed only existed for the Yidden in the time of the Mishkan. And in the middle, there was good, strong stuff, but cheap, that was made from noitza shel izim. These were the three basic ones. The one that was made from noitza shel izim, they were made while they were alive. On them, while the goat was jumping up and down, the woman was trying to spindle and make from the.
It's not Tzav Alechaim.
That's a good question, isn't it? Tzav Alechaim. You're making the tzizim crazy. The kvasim you're not making crazy. What are you trying to do over here? What's going on? Sounds that way. Yeah, Beferish sounds that way. I mean, that's what the Gemara says. 9 down. Beferish. We'll look in a moment about it. The Gemara learns the Beferish. Not the Gemara. The Gemara says it. And that's what Rashi says here.
Yeah.
He also said, "Mashma, they were alive." The Gemara is beferish that way. That find out in Shabbos. So, what's going on? Why would you do such a mishigan thing?
Yeah.
And the kvasim you're not going to do it, and the izim you are going to do it.
Yeah.
What's going on over here? Before we go into the answer, there was another interesting question. In the whole Vayakal Pikuda and also Truma, the Balei Tosfos asked this question. A lot of Mefarshim asked this question. We find the beginning of Pasha Pikuda that Rashi brings it to Gemara that B'tzalel said to Moshe, it doesn't make sense. You're telling me something doesn't add up. He said, Minhagei Shel Olam, first you build a house and then you build the tables and chairs. You're telling me first to build the tables and the chairs and then to build a house? It's cuckoo. Doesn't make sense. So the Moshe Rabbeinu said, B'tzel Kelo Yisa. B'tzalel, your name is B'tzalel. You know the secret. That's taka what the Eibusha told me, to build first the Mishkan and then the Kelim. So the question is, what went on? But that's just what Rashi says, what Chazal say. So we see that you were supposed to build a Mishkan in a normal way. You build first the building, and then the table and chairs, then the Kelim. So l'chorda, you would say the same thing here. You build first the walls, and then the ceiling. So Balei Tosfos ask, I don't understand. In the way it's told in Truma and also in Vayakal Pekudei, first they made the curtains for the ceiling, and then they made the Keroshim. So Tosfos itself says that no, that there has to be that there can't be that the Keroshim should be Sha'achad v'lo Kisui. Can't be that the Keroshim should be
after the kiss. Once you make it, right away you have to cover it.
Right away. So first of all, Haguf and why? And second of all, according to Rashi, Pshut Shemikra, it's not even true. That the Yidden could not put anything together until Moshe Rabbeinu did it. So Moshe Rabbeinu did it. So he did in the same day that he put the kroshim, put the yidis on the kroshim.
Another question. Women are sometimes anida, right? In Beis Hamikdash, everything you bring is supposed to be pure. How could the women do it on the 18 while it's still alive?
The Gra says.
Oh, that's why it's alive. So it's alive. It's not done.
Yeah, that's
That's the Chukmei there.
the Chachma.
Oh.
That's what the Gra says. That.
Maybe.
That's what the Gra says. And the Rebbe says that Meken Zogen Azoi, that there's two girses in the Gemara and the Gdukei Seifrim, and also according to what Rashi says, it's partially two girses. One is that Rashi said Sheme'al Gabe Izim Tovo Isan, and the other one is that Rashi says She'al Gabe, and also in the Gemara. Sheme'al, the Rebbe says that from the Pashtup Pshat in the Gemara Malshma, that when they made the strings, automatically they came off the Izim. But that means Sheme'al. But according to the other gis and the Gdukei from the Gemara, Al Gabi Izim Tov, it means that it was on the Izim, and then they took a scissor and they cut it off. In the Gemara, it's mashma no, because the Gemara says, these are the words of the Gemara. The Gemara says, Hatovet Tzema Al Gabi Behema B'Shabbos Chayiv Sholosh Chatois Achas Mishum Goizes Mishum Menapitz Mishum Toiv. It's mashma that he was goizes at the same time. But according to the Gra says, and the Rebbeinu Snafshin says no. They cut it. Why? Because the whole reason they did it on the Balchai, because the woman could be a nida. So you're going to wait till she comes to the mikveh. So if you do it while it's on the Balchai, so it's not makabel tumah. She could spit whatever she wants. She could make, she could spit, you can do whatever you want. Doesn't matter. She's going to do it. Then she's going to bring the goat to the Yosim Malacha, and then going to take a scissor, snip, 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 and there's no shaila of tumah. So the Rebbe says both pshatim are nice. It depends which girsa you go with. If you say Shemi al Gabe, means you, as they did it, they ripped their goizes. But if you learn like the Rebbe Safsh the Gra, you're probably going to hurl al Gabe izim. Okay. The Rebbe says like this in Pshat, and the Pshat and the Posuk, some things Rashi doesn't have to say, but some things Rashi has to explain. If you read the two Psukim, Rashi doesn't have to tell you that something's wrong over here. It says that they brought a list of merchandise to the Mishkan. Gold, silver, they brought copper, they brought tchelas, agam, and talashon, sheish, izim, oiris, elim, adam, oiris, tchoshem. They brought everything to the Mishkan. One package. Then when it talks about bringing, afterwards it says two different psukim. Number one, v'chol isha chachmas le'biyadeo tovu, v'yovi mat, v'esat chelas, v'sagam, v'stalashon, and v'sasheish. And number two, v'chol anoshim, asher nasa, liba, naisana, b'chachma, tov, v'so'izim. What's the two different psukim? So a child would ask already a question. It's a double pasuk. So you understand that the answer is that when it came to the fancy curtain, the lower curtain, then they didn't spindle it when it was on the sheep. They first cut it off, then they made the strings, and then they weaved it. But when it came to the izim, it was while it's on the izim. Why? What's the mila? Why is one different than the other? So a few nekudas the Rebbe says. First, in pshat, you could say like this: a child already learned that the difference of Cain and Hevel is that Cain brought
nice,
and Hevel brought nice stuff, and Cain brought bad stuff. So, but besides the fact that he brought rotten fruits, it was the mila of Hevel was that he brought balei chayim. So if you want to bring to the Mishkan a matona, that it should be a Baal Chai, there's a certain mila. It's almost like a korban when something is brought to the Mishkan as a gift when it's alive. So if you want to bring it as a gift to the Eibishter while it's alive, and once you cut it off, it's not alive anymore. So therefore, they had a kunst that they were able to make the thread while it's on the Baal Chai. Now, when it came to the Tzemer, they couldn't do that. Why? Because there was a mitzvah that it should be purple, it should be blue, it should be red. What are you going to do? You're going to take the goat and put him into a pot. That's how I call it.
No, you can't.
How are you going to do it?
It's
how you do it. There's no way. You got to cut it off. And then you put it in there, you cook it, you do whatever you do. It's a process.
Right, it's a process.
It's a factory. You can't put the sheep through it. The noitza shel izim was a very simple. That's the way it was. They put the fancy one on the bottom, and the weaving of the fancy colors was in the inside. the leather was on the top, and the middle was that strong noitza shalizim that was a cheaper one, and that wasn't ever painted or anything. So therefore, it was possible to do that kunz, to do it while it's on the izim. That's pshat. Rashi now wants to add to it. Rashi adds, and he says, not only this, but Rashi says you should know he hoisa umnus yisera, not only a chochma yisera. The pasuk says, "Kol anosha shenasa liban asana b'chochma," that they had special chochma and they knew how to do tviyas hayizim, how to make chutim, how to make threads while it's on the izim. Rashi says even more than that. It was a umnus, a special umnus. What's the special umnus? Uman means a person who can make a nice. Anyone can make a suit, but a tailor should be tailor. A suit. It's a suit. It's a certain umnus. So you should know that it's not only a mila, like in the korban, a spiritual thing, but there's also a certain umnus. Could be, and it's hard for us to know because we didn't live 3,300 years ago. Maybe while it was alive, it was connected to the thing. There was more a moisture in it, so therefore the threads came out nicer. And could be if you immediately weaved it, it came out a nicer piece of cloth, a stronger cloth, a more vibrant color to it. There was something that was a umnus yisera. It wasn't only a chochma yisera, that the chochma was that l'shem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they were able to do something special. But it was also umnus yisera. It was something umnus. It was a nicer suit. It was a nicer piece of cloth. If you knew how to make thread on the izim and then immediately cut it off, or shasi would cut off, and then right away make it into a cloth, it was a umnus yisera. It was much nicer. That piece of cloth ended up looking much nicer. So it's not only a chochma yisera that they brought a Baal Chai, but it was also umnus yisera. That's what Rashi wants to say. By the way, on a side, it's not from the Sikha. We know that the Rebbe had a certain koch in the first Tavshin Yud Aleph about wearing silk. There was a lot of tzaddikim that were medayik to wear silk in Shabbos. Who cares? You can wear wool, you can wear polyester. What's so special about
It's
silk?
not Baal Chai. It's not.
It is
The Baal Chai. The mila is that the other ones, first you cut it off the Baal Chai and then you make the thread.
Right.
So when you're making the thread, it's already caught off the Baal Chai. I mean, they don't have umnus yisera. No one knows how to make today. You take a goat to start making. I remember my uncle, Zachrona Lavrocher, Sholem Marozov, just years ago. It's like funny things you remember. I'm maybe 5 years old, and you remember my father Sholem, and he used to make a joke, and he used to shaking his own jokes. So he said, in America, we used to go visit my grandmother, Baba Brocha. So he said, in America, melekta ku in a machine, gitza chadrei, und setze kommt salami, kommt schon a salami from, so this is a psakunza, so the balchai gitza chadrei, and zet the salami, setze kommt a lailach, kommt schon a piece of material. So there's a special inyan to it. So there is an inyan that tzaddikim more dafke Meshi on Shabbos, because Meshi is the inyan of Balechai. The Rebbe really, I see people today don't connect to it so much. The Rebbe at that time,
It's a new invention. It wasn't in the time of the base in English.
Meshi?
It wasn't.
Could be, I don't know. Lav Dafke was around then.
Yeah, it was a new
Lav
invention.
Dafke.
The Rebbe wrote a letter, and he told the Rebbe a letter, and told him, I hope that by the pulpit, you're going to wear a silk kapot.
Yeah.
So then later on,
So the Rebbe said at that time in the Sikha that the Olam should wear silk and Shabbos. And if it's more expensive and therefore it gets ripped, so there's a leg in alata. There's a leg in alata.
What does that mean?
A patch.
A badge. Oh.
A patch. He said, what do you care? So you have a few patch here, a patch here. You can patch it up. You don't have to buy a new one every 2 years.
Yeah.
Because you know what happens? The silk cloth, you put it into the cleaner 2-3 times and it shreds.
Yeah.
But then you wear it in Shabbos, a little cholent here, this falls on it. So how do you get it off? It's very hard to get it off. So you put in seltzer. And that's what you're supposed to do, really, not be lazy. Put in the cleaners 2-3 times, and then they come out shreds. So the Rebbe said, no big deal. Just put
by the Rebbe, the silk kapot didn't look like silk anymore.
Didn't look like silk.
No. With the patches, it would look
With the
like silk.
patches there. I'm saying that this is, I don't know why. I don't know why it's a Himmel Kazakh, but the Rebbe, when you asked me about a kapota, that's why I told you then. The Eibishter will help, you'll get to that point.
Amen.
And you should buy a silk kapota.
Silk kapota.
It's not, I mean, you can buy for $400 today, you can buy for $450, you can buy a silk kapota. Yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to talk about the fancy today in Lubavitch, the New Age Chabad, the very fancy kapota, so that you might have to pay a few $100s more. Maybe you pay $600-700. But if you want to get a very basic silk kapota, you can get for $400-450.
The polyester ones at G&G are also that expensive.
The problem with G&G is they make polyester. They're not really
No,
silk.
right.
So number one, it defeats the whole thing of silk. Number two, it's gefährlich uncomfortable.
Right, sure.
Because if you're wearing it in the summer, you schwitz. If you're wearing real silk,
It's comfortable.
it's very comfortable. At mamish, it's very light and it's very comfortable. So there's an Indian, you should know that this is something very special. But we see, going back to the Mishkan, that the women had a chokhmah to bring to the Eibishter a gift, that they should bring the goats, and they already made this rings hanging off the goats, which is a chokhmah, and also umnus, because that was more special. The Rebbe says, now you understand why they made first the curtains that went on the Mishkan and then the Mishkan itself. Because what are they supposed to do? The goats are standing there and now we have to build it. But it's live, it's growing, the whole thing is going to fall apart. Also in a sense, this idea of Tzav balachayim. You're allowed to do to a Baal Chai if you need something. It's special to you. So the goat is not happy. Billy Goat is not happy if you tie him up on a box and you start making. But the woman said, "I want to bring to the Mishkan." So, but now if your Billy Goat is uncomfortable and you're going to leave it there for another 3 months or 4 months, we have to build the kroshim first. That's not right. It's Tzar Balachayim. So now it makes sense why because once you're making the curtains already. Make one, not the other. So they made already everything. The Rebbe says, could be that's the pshat, because the women right away, Nosaliban, it was their own nice odors, and they went right away and they took the izim and they made the threads out of the izim and they brought it to Moshe and Betzalel. And now the question was, what are you going to do now? So you have to right away cut it off. And the umnus was right away to make a matve. So you're already making the curtains. So they already made first the curtains, and they ended up making the kroshim next.
Rabbi, when the woman took from the Azim while they're alive, they can bleed.
No,
Of course, you take
they probably had an umnus. They knew how to do it in a way that they won't bleed. They probably, I don't know, huh?
When they
No, they first made the thread, and then they cut it.
Why can they go? Why they're bleeding?
Yeah, why should they bleed? I don't know.
They do when they share the goats with the sheep, they don't bleed.
Shouldn't bleed. I don't think so. I don't know.
you take something from the skin.
No, but the Eibishter made.
It's not the skin.
Right?
It's not the skin.
That's not the
They're
skin.
cutting up the hair.
Like
Yeah,
here.
but when they're taking it, they can pull not a
Listen, they told the Billy Goat, listen, you stand good. You're gonna jump around, it's gonna hurt. The more calm you'll be, the better it'll be for you.
Yeah. Rabbi, correct me if I'm wrong. It was like shearing sheep, right?
Right, yeah, but a little more complicated.
Yeah, because the goats jump around, as you were
Jump
saying.
around.
So it was no bleeding involved.
Probably not.
Yeah.
We're not there to
We're
know,
not
but
sure, no.
probably not.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's summarize. So this is really what Rashi is saying. Rashi is saying there was a Chochmah Seder and also an Omnus Seder, really, because if you read the Psukim, there's two different Psukim, because the truth is that when it was to the sheep, they sheared them first and then they painted the different colors, and then but here by the Izim, it was a special Chochmah, special Omnus, that they made the threads while they were alive on them, and then they cut them right away off, and that's why you did Yediyas first. Okay. The Rebbe has one in Halacha from this Rashi and one in Avodas Hashem, two beautiful pots. All the Meforshim asked, except in Spanech, there's a Beis Yitzchak, there's a Klichemda. They said, don't understand, if you read a pasuk, women, it's also for women to build a Beis HaMikdash. Why? Because any mitzvah that a woman is obligated, she could do. She's not obligated. So there's a question if she's allowed to do. The Rabbeinu Tam says that a woman is not allowed to make tzitzis. Tzitzis have to be made lishma. Alulav, she can't do. Why? That was a machlokes what the Rabbeinu Tam meant. Some are a little softer, and some, like the Pri Megadim says, that she can't even make the threads for the tzitzis. Only a man has to make it. L'shem kedushas tzitzis. So in the way it's frekt the old Mefoshim. Wait a second. So according to the Rabbeinu Tam, how were the women allowed to make the threads and weave the curtains for the Beis Hamikdash? Since it's building the Beis Hamikdash, as a mitzvah says Shazman Gram, it's Bayom v'Loi Balayla, it's Bechol v'Loi B'Shabbos. So because it's Potter, they're Potter from building the Beis Hamikdash. According to the Rabbeinu Tam, it would be also for them to do it. So if they did it, should be not kosher.
Everything the women are involved with.
No, because we're machmer.
They're not
We're talking machmer. Look at tzitzis factories. They have men do it.
really.
Talking machmer. But Rabbeinu Tam, it's a machlokes within Rabbeinu Tam. If he meant that they can't even do the threads, the money that they're talking machmer today, and they make it, talking men make it. So the Meforshim ask Abazoi, how was it mutter for the women to build the Beis Hamikdash? So the Rogatchover answers. Unbelievable teretz. Am I sitting on the chair or the chair's under me? What's the mitzvah of building a mishkan? Is it a mitzvah to build the mishkan or the Beis Hamikdash, or is it a mitzvah that the Beis Hamikdash should be built? He says both are true. There's a mitzvah to build the Beis Hamikdash, and there's a mitzvah the Beis Hamikdash should be built. What's the difference? One is a time-sensitive mitzvah. You could build by day, not by night. You can build on Sunday through Friday, not on Shabbos. But the mitzvah that the mikdash has to be a building is 24/7. So therefore, on the first mitzvah, women cannot get involved. On the second mitzvah, they could be involved. So it means like this. He says, if you have to bring a korban, there's certain essential things in the Beis Hamikdash that have to be there. Otherwise, you can't be makar of a korban. Women are also chayiv in the midst of korbanos. So in order for it to be the bare minimum of what's needed in the Beis Hamikdash, in order for it to be kosher, in order for the korbanos to be nikrev al gabe mizbeach, which is not a chelik in the building the Beis Hamikdash, or a chelik of the mitzvah of having a Beis Hamikdash, and the mitzvah of having a Beis Hamikdash is 24/7. So that the women could get involved in that mitzvah. Here the Rebbe adds that a few salt and pepper. The Rebbe says that there's a Gemara in Shabbos that says Vayifres oil ala Mishkan, that the kedusha, the Mishkan, came from the curtains that are on top. The Gemara says if the wind came and the second layer of there's 3 layers of curtains there's 3 layers of curtains that are sitting on top of the Mishkan. The fancy one that are the blue and the purple and the red. There is the izim, which is the simple white one, and there is the leather that is sitting on the top. So what's this kippel ruach? If the ruach a little and the top 2 went flying with the wind, halfway flying off, but this curtain is still there, so the kedushas hamishkan is still there, and you could still make the korbanos. You can still make the korbanos. So the Rebbe says that maybe that's the pshat why it's mashma in the psukim a little bit. That when it came to make the tchelas hagama talas shanaves asheish, they actually did the weaving, because women are also mechuyev in having a Beis Hamikdash, and they're also mechuyev in having korbanos. So, and the bare minimum for the oil moyed to be kosher is to have 1 set of curtain, and if the other 2 go flying off with the wind, it's still kosher. So the bottom one, which was made out of the tchelas hagam talashan and sheish, they were allowed to weave it, but the upper ones, which were not essential, because if kippel ruach oides izim or oides elim odamim, it would not take away from the kedusha of the Mishkan. So therefore, they were allowed to make a hachona, which is even that's a shayla if you hold it. Rabbeinu Tam holds you allowed to do it, but some opinions who hold that you are allowed to do it. So they were allowed to be toive esoizim, and maybe even the Rabbeinu Tam would be maskim that if it's while the goat is alive, that's already not considered anything. Therefore, they needed to do it while the goat was alive, because if afterwards it's possible for them to do the avodah, because the bottom one is essential. for the avodah. So therefore, the women were allowed to weave the bottom curtain, but the middle curtain and the top curtain, the women were not allowed to get. So the women were able to outsmart the system, and they said, "We're going to weave the chutim while it's on the izim, and that's going to be kosher." And they were right, and that was taka kosher, and that's the reason why they needed to do it while it was still on the izim. These women were really smart.
Oh yeah.
What about
They were like the Rogachover guys.
three line was flying?
Not kosher. It was a problem. The Mishkan now became puzzle.
You can
You
push
put
it
it, you push it back. But the Gemara says if people the ruach pushed off the top one or the middle one, then it's fine. It's nicht gefährlich.
Wasn't tied down.
Didn't tie it down, no. The only thing we find that they towed down was like they had by the chotzer. We find over there that here it seemed that just the weight itself kept it down. But it could be if it was a big wind, it could be that it should move a little bit. Okay, so that's the Inyanim of Floim in Rashi. And what's in Avodas Hashem? So the Rebbe says in Avodas Hashem we could learn two things, two very simple lessons. Very beautiful lessons. The Alter Rebbe, there's a story that the Frierdiker Rebbe said that there was a chosid, and he said there was not only one, there was several chosidim of the Alter Rebbe. That there was certain, these are the words, I have to read it inside, it's just unbelievable. Die Yedua der alten Rebens a chosid, hat gehat a gute Parnassavoch, is a gewinn sicher, als kommende Kahem wird treffen der Rebens a Tzedocke Yisraelis Brief, oder der Rebens a Meshulach, was kleibt der Zorche, a Chazok, es b'nei Eretz Yisrael. You hear the story? There was a chosid out there. One week, he did good in the business. He would come home and say to his wife, I'm telling you, mark my word. Before the week finishes, the Alter Rebbe is sending a Meshulach here to collect tzedakah for Eretz Yisrael.
They make good.
So he said, wife said, how do you know? Because I made extra money. It must be that the Meshulach is coming from the Alter Rebbe to collect that money. That's why I made extra money. It's an unbelievable mindset. The Rebbe says that that's what you see about the women. That's mamash in the pasuk. If they had chachma, they said, why did the Eibishter give us chachma? To utilize it for the binyan and Beis HaMikdash. A person has to say to himself, I made an extra profit in the business. Why did the Eibishter give me an unbelievable like that? I was reading my story with this painter who passed away 2 years ago, the Baruch Nachshon Chevron. The Rebbe put in a lot of effort, and the Rebbe told him in the first Yechidus, he was a Baal Tshuva, he came from Haifa, and the Rebbe said that he's going to pay for him to learn art in New York. Whole thing, he went to art school, and the Rebbe said, I want to, many generations has been around, and art has not been used in Kedusha, and I want you to use art in Kedusha. There was the Rebbe asked him afterwards, many years later, when he was a famous painter, that he should make a gallery in New York. Were you around Toshalamates when they had all the paintings? That Rebbe went upstairs and looked at all his paintings. It's an unbelievable thing that they had. The Rebbe went for about an hour, and the Rebbe made a lot of comments and pictures, halacha things about the kruvim, that these the Christians think against Apirashi. It's not like he made the Rebbe made 20 or 30 different ha'aras and different pictures. But the Rebbe told him it's come the time that to pick up the sparks of kedusha of art. And the Rebbe said that he wants to give him a stipend to learn. He said he went to a famous painter in New York, and the guy told him, said something. So he said, Lubavitcher Rebbe told me I have to do it kosher. So the artist told him, Lubavitcher Rebbe knows Judaism, but I know art. If you listen to me, you'll know art. So he said, I'm not coming to you. And then he ended up going to some Goyish, seminar. And years later, he said, the guy met him, he said, you were right. Taki became a world-renowned artist, Baruch Nachshon. But it was interesting that that attitude that the Rebbe had, if you have a talent, so you have to use it out in Kedusha. And the Rebbe said to him, so you come inside that this talent that's been in the world, that's been used, the Hepach HaKedusha, for so many generations, that now we're going to use it out, and you're going to be, he said he felt that responsibility, that I was telling him that he's talking from those painters that today it's Baruch Hashem, that his whole thing was about Jewish themes, Altaras HaKodesh. It should taka be not stam, like taka apitaras HaKodesh. So you have a talent, that means that the Eibishter wants you. So the Noshim that had Chochmah right away realized What's the shaila? If we have chokhmah, we have to use it to build the Beis Hamikdash. We have a certain chokhmah, we have to use it in avodas Hashem. That's number one. Second lesson we can learn is about being so careful of Tzar Balei Chaim. That by the way, at Shabbos I told the whole story about Rebbe Elazar Iskiri. So Miltzag Avorchem, because I spent a lot of time Thursday and Friday looking into the Svarim of Rebbe Elazar Iskiri. So there's a story that he brings in the in the Sefer Charedim that there was a chacham that he asked his wife to take care of the chicken coop. She forgot to give food to the Taran Goyim. And when he came to Rizal, the Rizal told him that on his forehead there is a thing written that he has a sin of Tzar Balei Chaim. So the Noshim brought the goats, and according to the Rebbe of Pashtus, that's why they first made the curtains before the Kroshim, even though that's not Minhag Shalom. First you should make the walls, and then because it's Tzar Balei Chaim. So Madach, this Tzar Balei Chaim for goats, Kolshkein, when it comes to the Tzar of a Yid. Tana Dveilio says, if you see a Jew that's naked, you have to cover him. What does it mean? So the Tana Dveilio says, it means if you see that he's not wearing tzitzis, he's naked. He thinks he's well dressed. Suit, tie, his cufflinks. He thinks he's well dressed. He thinks he's the best dressed man in New York City. If he's not wearing tzitzis, he's naked. He's odom min mitzvahs. He's not wearing tefillin. He's odom min mitzvahs. So So the lesson is the madach. We're
But
concerned.
Rabbi, another example is if your wife is not wearing a sheitel, it's almost like she's naked too, right?
Exactly. So comes another Jew that doesn't know about the beauty of all these mitzvahs.
Yeah.
So if we're concerned about the Tzar Balei Chaim, Kolshkein, Torah wants that we should be concerned about the Tzar of the Neshama of another Jew. So we have to make sure, like the Tanit Ve'elio continues, that you should give a piece of bread to the poor. So the Tanit Ve'elio says that what does it mean? Just like you have to give him a piece of bread, physical, you have to give him a piece of Torah. And just like you have to give him a shirt in order to cover himself, you have to give him tzitzis and tefillin that he should have. So that's the second lesson we learned. So two lessons we learned. Number one, when the women saw that they have a chokhmah, they immediately understood that it meant to use it in avodas Hashem. And the second, after they used it, when they brought it to Moshe and the Chachamim, they right away said, "Listen, we can't have any Tzar Balei Chaim." There's a lot of things that we do in the night of Pesach that have a like we don't want the past to be embarrassed. We cover whenever we pick up the wine. We don't want the past to be embarrassed. So we don't want the matzah to feel bad. So we cover the matzah. Whenever we pick up the wine, we cover. We put it down, we uncover. Cover, uncover. We're very concerned about the feelings of the three matzahs. So Kolshking of the that we have to be concerned about the feelings of another Jew. That's the second lesson. That by utilizing our lesson, our koiches, and building a mishkan, and about being careful about the feelings of another Yid, we should be zeicha to be involved in building the Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi.